Hello class, welcome back to StudyWeb Academy, where education is without limits. Welcome back to our English class, and let's continue looking at the parts of speech. So I've told you what parts of speech are, and right now we're looking at the examples of parts of speech to just remind ourselves what we learned in the past, okay? So I have talked about nouns, I've talked about the pronouns, I moved to the verbs, I went to the adjectives, I looked at the adverbs, I looked at the prepositions, I looked at the conjunctions, and I looked at the interjections, okay? So these are the examples of the parts of speech we have. These are the examples. So right now we're going to now look at the examples, but in an in-depth ability or an in-depth knowledge, okay? So we're going to be looking at that. So let's jump in and look at the first example here, and it's what we call the nouns. So again, like I said, a noun is a naming word, okay? So it names places, it names things, it names animals, people, ideas, concepts. So a noun is a naming word, very simple, and that's all you need to know about nouns. So they serve as the building block of sentences, or play a very, very crucial role or an important role in communication by helping us refer to and describe the world around us, okay? So the nouns are just the naming words, okay? And in a sentence, they are very, very important, as we need to know like who an action is being done to or who is being spoken about in a sentence, okay? So that is why we need to understand what these nouns are, okay? So let's continue now, look at what we call the common nouns, okay? The common nouns. So the first example you're going to be looking at is the common nouns. Now, I know you know what common nouns are. So like I said, we as grade 9 students, we've come across these nouns and we basically know the types of the nouns. So the first example I'm looking at is the common nouns. Now, common nouns are just nouns that we know, we are familiar with, or we talk about them or we use them in our day-to-day communication, okay? So nouns like book, nouns like car, nouns like teacher, this is just common nouns, okay? Then we have something like the proper nouns. Now with proper nouns, these are nouns that they must be written or started with a capital letter. So when you write the common nouns, you must begin with a capital letter. The proper nouns, I mean, I'm sorry about that. So you must begin with a capital letter. So try analyze what I'm saying, okay? So once you get that in your mind, okay, once you understand what common nouns are and proper nouns are, so like I'm saying, common nouns are the nouns we know, we already familiar with. For example, book, car, pen. These are nouns that we use in our day-to-day communication as we speak to our friends, we speak to our families. They're the nouns we use every time. But when you say, or when you talk about proper nouns, for example, Shakespeare, Paris, Mary, Nigeria, these are proper nouns, nouns that must be written, or anytime you're writing them, you must begin with a capital letter. So those are the proper nouns. They represent specific ideas or specific things. So if I'm talking about a girl is a common noun, but Mary is a proper noun. Do you get the difference? So you find a girl, there are a lot of girls, there are a lot of books, there are a lot of boys, there are a lot of mothers. But when I'm specific, maybe I'm talking about Mary, I'm specific about the specific girl, okay? So that becomes a proper noun. When I'm specific about a country, Nigeria, that Nigeria becomes a proper noun, but country becomes a common noun because we have very many countries, okay? So that's the difference between a common noun and a proper noun, okay? Don't forget about that. The next category we have is concrete and abstract noun. When I talk about concrete and abstract noun, what comes into your mind? So with concrete and abstract nouns here, concrete nouns are just tangible nouns, nouns that we can touch. For example, table, for example, tree, for example, apple. So concrete nouns and nouns that are tangible. And when I say tangible, I mean these are nouns that we can touch, okay? These are nouns that we can see and we can touch. So something that you can touch, you can see it, obviously, okay? But when it comes to the abstract nouns, these are just ideas or emotions or concepts. So for example, love, for example, happiness, these are emotions, what we feel, okay? They're just ideas. We can't see them or neither touch them, okay? So that is the concrete and the abstract noun, okay? So I'm giving you time to try analyze what we're talking about, okay? You try think on your own and just try remind yourself these things that I'm talking about. It's very, very easy because I believe in your past classes you've already talked about all these types of nouns. But here we're just going through them and just reminding ourselves this type of nouns, okay? So again, familiarize yourself with the common and proper nouns, and now familiarize yourself with the concrete and abstract nouns. So after looking at that, we will now look at the other category, and that is the countable and the uncountable nouns. Countable and uncountable, countable and uncountable nouns, okay? So even from the word countable, what does that mean? Anyone? Or even the word uncountable, what does that mean? So when you talk about countable nouns, these are nouns that we can count, okay? Nouns like apple, nouns like book, nouns like pencil. These are nouns that we can count. But when it comes to uncountable nouns, they are nouns that we cannot count, okay? These are nouns that we cannot even like divide it into smaller amounts and try count it. So for example, water. For example, happiness. Can we count water? Can we count happiness? No. So these are the uncountable nouns that we know. So don't forget about that. That's also an example of a noun. Then we have plural nouns, okay? So noun plurals are an important topic that we all should learn and understand the rules for forming regular plural nouns, okay? So here with plural nouns, we have the regular plural nouns and the irregular plural nouns. Now, this idea, I know most of you knew this, or most of you did not know this. So, examples of the plural nouns, we add the s or the es to it, okay? So, for example, here we have the word child. Child goes to children, or man. Man will be changed to men, okay? So we're adding some specific letters to it to make them plural. So this is other category, but this is just a subcategory. Don't pay much attention to that, but the importance of that is to just know how it works or how we make some certain nouns plural. So for example, chick, a chick will become chicken, okay? And for the plural nouns, we add like s and es to it. And for the irregular plural, the plural, we add like child becomes children, or the man becomes men, okay? So woman becomes women. Notice that those are examples of the plural nouns. So there's a specific rule that guides people on how to find the plural for these nouns. Don't forget about that. Let's continue and look at the possessive nouns. So when you talk about the possessive nouns here, we're just talking about nouns that show ownership, okay? So we have nouns that will help us show ownership. So this includes our understanding on how to make nouns possessive by adding, look at this, you add an apostrophe and an s. So even in our former classes, we've talked about this possessive nouns, okay? Nouns that show ownership. So if you want to say something like John's pencil or Mary's book, there's an s that is added there and an apostrophe. So for example, John's car, look at this. So this John's here is a possessive noun that shows the car belongs to John, okay? So you add an apostrophe, and you add an s to that, okay? So John's car. Or maybe use the for example, you have, for example, students or teachers. That's a plural. But how do we show possession for that? We just add an apostrophe at the end. That's all. You don't need to add another s or another apostrophe. No. You see, now when it's students, already in plural, you just add an apostrophe at the end of that. So that's how we make it a possessive pronoun. The next one is the noun phrase. Now, we have something called the noun phrase. Students must study noun phrase, which can be more complex than singular nouns and can include determiners like articles, demonstratives, adjectives, and prepositional phrases like the old or the tall old oak tree in the park. So we have these noun phrases. Noun phrases are just, you see, like a sentence has phrases, or a sentence can be divided into phrases. So we have these phrases that we use, for example, the tall old oak tree in the park. Okay, so you notice that these are prepositional phrases. So we'll talk about more on this, don't worry, but I believe some of us already have an idea of what these are. Okay, so let's continue. Those are the noun phrases. Then we have something known as appositives, and I know I've talked about this too, and right now I just want us to remind ourselves. So with appositives involve recognizing and using noun phrases to rename or explain another noun in a sentence. Okay, so appositives just add information. So for example, when you give a sentence like, my friend Sarah is coming to the party, so you notice that if I remove the word Sarah, let me show you something nice here. So if I choose to remove this word, so let me try just shade it off. So I don't want you to see this, okay? So if I remove this word Sarah, so read the sentence now. The sentence will be, my friend is coming to the party. And that is a very, very correct sentence. Very, very correct, okay? So that is another way. So if I remove this Sarah here, the sentence is also correct. But now, to show the use of appositives, it's just words that we add in a sentence, or noun phrases that rename or explain another noun. So we have my friend here as a noun, but we have another word that gives more information about the noun. So for example, my friend, but who is the friend? My friend Sarah is coming to the party. Now let me get rid of what I've drawn here. So you find that, let me get rid of this. Okay, so you find that my friend Sarah, so Sarah is an appositive because it just adds more information about this other noun, and that is the my friend noun. Okay, then we have something called noun functions. So in 9th grade we may also study how nouns can function in a sentence, okay, or function in sentences as a subject, object of preposition, and complement. Now, so far I know we know what a subject of a sentence is, an object of a sentence is, and an object preposition is. So a subject of a sentence is who the doer of the action, that is it. So a subject of the sentence is the doer of the action. Then the object is the receiver of the action. So for example, I will visit my friend today. Who is the subject of the sentence? So I becomes the subject of the sentence because I is the doer of the action. So who will visit? It's me who will visit, okay? So the person who will do the action of visiting becomes the subject. But who will be visited? Who will the action of visiting be done to? It is my friend. So I will visit my friend today. So my friend becomes the object and I becomes the subject of the sentence. Don't forget about that. Then we have something known as collective nouns. And I know we already know what collective nouns are. So with collective nouns, they're just, they refer to groups of things, okay? Or a group of entities, for example, okay? So for example, a team, family, committee, all these are collective nouns because they show a group of things, okay? So all those are collective nouns, okay? Don't forget about that. Those are collective nouns. Now, we have this collective noun can be in singular or plural based depending on the context, okay? So for example, a family of friends or a team of basketball players, a committee of or a panel of something. So these are collective nouns that show something is in a group or a large number, okay? So that's another example or a type of the nouns. Then lastly, we have something called the noun clause. So more advanced students may begin to explore noun clauses, the noun